Hey everybody, today I'm going to talk about the object that made me start OITHL. So, a few months ago, my fiance sent me an interesting article about how the Handaxe developed and how it implies how language developed. And I thought, it's a little outside my wheelhouse, but it's still really interesting, so I started talking about other objects in the history of language, and I think it's time to talk about how the Handaxe can tell us better how language developed. So first we have to talk about the earliest stone tools that humans made, which were essentially just sharp flakes made by banging two rocks together. And we can observe other animals doing this today. They're called Aldoan flakes. We find them in East Africa, and some of them have been found specifically next to remains of Homo habilis, one of the earliest hominids. This is about 2 million years ago. 1.6 million to 2.5 million is what I remember. So that's the simplest stone tools. And then you have the Handaxe, which is a little bit more complex. You have to essentially do the same motion to make it. You're just banging rocks together. But you have to make a teardrop shape out of the rock. You have to kind of think about what that's going to look like before you do it. And you have to make it symmetrical if you want it to be as sturdy and as good of a cutting edge as you want it to be. And those don't show up until 500,000 years ago with Homo erectus, who was the first hominid to start leaving Africa and entering Eurasia. Now that's a big gap between two things that are kind of the same idea, and I read a paper in making this. I'll link it in the description if you want, if what I say isn't perfectly clear. Essentially, they did like a hand motion sensor and did that with someone making the simple flakes versus the Handaxe in modern times. Obviously, people still know how to do that, I would hope. And what they concluded was it's not more mechanically difficult to make a Handaxe, and that just makes sense. You're banging rocks together. But it's more mentally complex, which implies that didn't develop in early humans because their brains weren't there yet. So, they did a brain scan of somebody making that Handaxe. And what they found was the part of your brain that lights up when you're making a complex tool and you're thinking about how to make it and what it's going to look like and stuff like that. The right side of your brain lights up, and specifically closer to the language centers in your brain. That's interesting. I think it's fair to say that both making more complex stone tools and using language are the same or similar types of complex thought. They happen in the same part of the brain, and that is just kind of it makes sense logically that being able to communicate more complexly would develop as what we made was more complex. Okay, so from that, I can deduce 4 things, is what I'll say. Okay? So, 4 things that could have happened. All right? One is that it's just kind of a coincidence, and they developed separately from each other, making complex tools and speaking language, and they aren't really related, and it just so happens that they're in the same part of the brain. I don't think that's very likely. 2 is the process of making more complex tools led to the necessity of having more complex language. And the fact that it stimulates the same part of the brain as speaking language maybe facilitated our brain in developing language. 3 is that maybe as our languages became more complex, that perhaps it became easier to tell somebody how to make a more complex tool. Like, what if, and this is just me, what if, like, people starting to speak more complexly and their language slowly develops stronger over time? Then they were like, hey, wait, hold on. Why are we just making these little flakes to cut with? What if we made a flake that was thicker at the bottom so that it wouldn't break as easy? You know what I mean? And they talked about it, and then that came to be the tool. I don't know. That's kind of weird speculation. And I guess my fourth one is that they both happened unrelated but helped each other along. That would be the fourth way I could guess that would work. But I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. So for my closing thought, if we only use objects that have writing on them to assess how language developed, we will have a shallow view of how language developed, because obviously people were saying words before they were writing them down, right? We don't start writing and then assign those things sounds or meaning. We talk about what these pictures mean. So, if we're going to assess how language developed in prehistory, we're going to have to use things that humans did before they started writing. And stone tools are some of our biggest archaeological finds that let us know, oh, there were probably humans here. So I think that's a nice interdisciplinary connection. And I think it's really cool. Thank you for watching Linking. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and have a great day. Bye-bye.